Hey friends, I'm RSKT, and welcome to the third installment in the Deluge Video Manual, where I'm going to be showing you everything I know about using the Synthstrom Deluge. In the last video, we went over clip view, which is the view we're in right now, and that's mostly about all of the sequences features and what it has to offer. And in this video, we're mostly going to be focusing on song view. But before we get into any of that, there was one thing that I forgot to include in the last video, and I just want to take the time to go over that now. So in front of us, I've got a simple drum beat. Let's have a quick listen. All right, so that's a few bars long, and I didn't go over how to play from a specific point in a clip. And this pretty much works in song view and arranger view throughout the Deluge as well. So it's a really good tip to know. So I'm just going to zoom in here. And right now we've got bar 1, bar 2, and bar 3 and bar 4. Let's say I wanted to play from bar 3 onwards, because if I'm constantly editing notes, I don't want to have to listen from the sequence starting all the way back and continuing to the end in order for me to be able to edit it. So the way we do that is we hold down this button up here and then we press the play button. And now that's started from bar 3. We'll play on through bar 4 and then loop back to bar 1. You can zoom in even further and do this wherever you like. So yeah, I hope that that's useful to some people. When I first got this thing, it took me a little bit to figure that out, and I'm really glad that I did because it's such a time saver. All right, so let's get stuck into song mode. To create a new song, we just go Shift and New. And it'll ask you to confirm, and then you press New again. And now we have a blank track ready to go. It defaults to clip view. And as we went over in the last video, we can choose between synth, kit, MIDI, and CV tracks. Let's press Song. Now we're in song view, and this is the clip, the empty clip that it defaulted with when we started the new project. So I'm going to go ahead and create a really basic song for us to work with here, just so that we have a few clips ready to go. So I've just gone ahead here and created 4 tracks ready for us to work with. We have a drum track, bass track, chord track, and a lead track. You can notice straight away that some of these clips are different lengths. So for example, the drum track is only this long, the bass track is this long, and these 2 tracks run the whole length. We can zoom in just to get a fresher look. And now we can see sort of the clip colors because we're at a higher resolution now. So as I mentioned in my previous video, I usually like to change the colors of my clips as I make them. So I usually like my drums to be blue, and you can edit individual rows by holding this, pressing Shift and twisting this knob. So yeah, Shift and this knob is the clip change color. This is the bass track. I usually like to make my bass track purple. I actually do this for all of my projects. I've actually been doing it in Ableton for years as well, but I find it really useful because it means that, like, obviously we can't see what any of these clips are unless we hear them. So when I'm flicking between each one of my projects as I make them, it can be really helpful to be like, oh, okay, there's my drum tracks and there's my bass tracks and so on and so forth. So maybe I would suggest you to pick a color palette that works for you, and then see if you can keep up some consistency, because it just makes navigating your previously made songs a hell of a lot easier, and it's also a lot easier to perform with as well. For my chords or pad sounds, I usually just go some kind of green. And for a lead sound, I go yellow. Yeah, something about that should do the job. So right now we can see that all of these audition pads are green and these ones are blue. We'll go into why these are blue in a minute, but let's just focus on the mute and launch buttons first. Basically, if a clip is green, that means that it is active. And when I press play, all of these clips are going to play together. If we press on these, they change red. And now only the green ones are going to be played and the red ones will be off. So now it's just our drum clip playing. If we want to launch in some other clips to go with that, we just press this button. Might have pressed that a bit early. So we can see that it flashes to say that it's getting ready to stop, and then it'll flash to get ready to go. So it's always going to launch in time, which is really, really handy. For those eagle-eyed viewers, you may have noticed a digit popping up on the screen, especially when I was launching these bottom tracks. So for example, this drum track is half the length of our bass track. So if I play this, the bass track will come in as soon as the drum track reaches the last bar, like so. This track is twice the length of those, and so is this one. So if we launch this, and now we activate this one, it's going to wait until this clip has reached the end so that they can come in together. Doing that one more time, I press this, you'll see a little countdown at the top. Now, something really interesting about that countdown is that we can actually control it. So for example, if I'm playing this, I press this one. If I hold it down as I press it, I can twist this knob. See the number 2 is up on the screen now, and now it's gone down to number 1. We can basically tell this that we want it to wait for 2 more loops before bringing that track in. This only really works as you're playing it, and I don't really use it all that often, if I'm being honest with you, but it's nice to know that it's there. So just pressing these buttons obviously brings things in so that it's always playing in time. The Deluge will always play in time, but it's important to know that you can also bring these clips in and out instantly. So if we press play, let's say we wanted to drop out our drums, we can hold shift, and whatever pad we press, it will stop immediately. And we can also bring things in that way too. Doing this is a really fun way to be able to perform with your tracks and sort of get things going in time. Maybe you want to cut something off halfway. So yeah, holding shift and pressing the mute or launch pad will bring in or stop something as soon as you press it. There may be times that you want to solo a clip, for example. So if we press play, if we press this knob in at the top and then choose one of the mute or launch pads, it's going to solo that clip out. Now it's going to wait until the end of the last bar. I forgot to hold shift, but there we go. So this blue icon means that it is soloed. We can hold this down and press shift and bring in another one. So soloing can be really good if you're sort of working on something and trying to mix it, but it can also be really helpful when you're performing as well. Sometimes holding shift and bringing things in automatically and when we go through sections can be a little bit confusing when you're on the fly. And I've actually found it really helpful to just quickly solo a track and then figure out what I'm doing while I've got that little bit of extra time up my sleeve. Now, there are a lot of other things that we can do from this view as well, such as changing the instruments or sounds that are used in synths or drum clips. So just playing through the drums, if I hold anywhere on this clip row and twist this knob, we're just selecting different drum sounds, just like we would in clip view. This also works for synth tracks. Now, let's say, for example, that I make a new clip here and I try something out just to see if it works. Maybe we'll go... Yeah, so let's say that I'm not really happy with that and I don't want that clip anymore. I was just trying something out. So to delete a clip, we can just hold on this row and press the delete button, and now it's gone. Another important thing to remember is that we can change the order of these clips anytime we want to. So we'll just hold down on the drums, for example. Let's say I wanted to move it to the bottom. With the drum selected, we can just twist this knob and shift things down. Now it's at the bottom of our row. So you can't move past this point. All your clips are bunched together. So, you have a bit of a limit, but it can be really helpful. Sometimes I might make certain variations, but I always like to keep my drums at the top and then my bass and then chords. And I have like a particular order that I like to sort of have things in. And yeah, being able to rearrange your clips sort of in a way that makes sense to you is really important. All right, so let's go over cloning clips. So right now, just remember our sequence is this. So what I want to do is maybe make a variation of this bass clip, but I don't want to mess with the one that I already have. So I'm going to clone it. Basically, we're going to do like a copy and paste function. We're going to hold down on this and just press one of the empty rows. So now we have a perfect copy of our bass clip, and you can see that it's been given a different section color. Let's make some alterations to this clip. I'm going to turn that on and we'll have a quick listen. Cool. I'm happy with that. So you might have noticed that when I selected this to play, it turned off my original bass track. We cannot have these two bass tracks playing at the same time because they are using the same sound, which is patch 0. Now, there is a way around this, and we'll go into this shortly. But it's really important to understand what's going on here first. So yeah, these two are sharing the same patch. If I were to select this one, for example, and switch it to a different patch, maybe we'll use patch 5. Great. Now when I select this one, it's actually going to turn on, and these two bass patches are going to play together. Now, I don't want those two playing together. I want them to be separate. But watch what happens if I hold this down and try to switch back to patch 0. It's jumping straight back to a different sample pack I have loaded in. Patch 0 is no longer available. Why that is because this row is still turned on. So if we turn that off, jump into here, we can now revert it back to patch 0. The reason the Deluge does this is because you often want to make variations on a clip, but you don't want them to play at the same time. I can't think of an instance where I would want these two bass patches to be playing at the same time. But again, we will go into sort of the workaround in being able to do that. Before we do though, let's have a look at what we've got here with these sections. What I might do is make a copy of my drum track. And I'll pop it down here. So that's just shifted my bass down. And now we've got a drum and bass copy. Let's make the drum slightly different. Whoops, turn that on. pretty extreme. So what this is a whole new section. We can actually launch different sections. So if I press one of these blue sections, all of these blue pads are going to light up. And then once they're finished playing, they'll play the pink section. That can be really useful if you have different sections to your song. Maybe you have a verse, a chorus, and a bridge, so on and so forth. But just keep in mind that pressing one of these is going to turn on all of the tracks, and you may not always want that to happen. So, we can keep making different copies and different variations, and you'll notice that it automatically assigns like a new section color as you go through. Let's say I wanted this pink section to be something different. So if I press Shift and tap on this audition selection pad, it's now assigned it to the yellow group. Now, all of these ones will play together. However, because this is a copy of this bass patch, we can't play these simultaneously. You might think that's a bit of a hindrance, but you can actually use it to your advantage with sort of turning whole sections on, but not having certain things playing. Now, I don't actually use sections all that much. Like I do sometimes, but sometimes it can get a little bit confusing. And it's also very frustrating when you're performing live, maybe you got something playing and then you go to turn this track on, but you accidentally hit the section button, and now all of those clips are going to turn on. So it's kind of good to just open up a blank project and stuff around with this feature as much as you can and try to get your head around it in the best way possible. Now, I plan on making a few videos on particular styles of workflow and stuff that I like to use, but here's something that you can experiment with, because a lot of people are always wondering, like, how do I do a fill on the Deluge, for example? So right now we've got 2 drum tracks playing at the top. Let's turn these other ones off, and we can only have one of them playing at a time. So this top one, and then this bottom one. So something we can do with sections is if we hold down on the audition or section tab pad, basically at the moment we have infinite, so it's going to infinitely loop. But we can actually up this. Maybe we want it to loop once or twice, so on and so forth. It just keeps going up. So let's say I set this to 1 loop. So we've got our drum playing along. Maybe we want a fill to come in for the last section. But now it goes straight back into our drum row. So yeah, maybe, in a normal case, I'd probably just have that at the end of this clip, but it can be really useful if you're performing live and you just want to sort of bring in some crazy sort of fills or randomness to the end of your sequences, but you want total control over it. That's something that you can play around with. Now, obviously, this is a fairly basic case of it. I would probably go ahead and, make copies of all of these so that once one section ends, it sort of loops back into the whole other section with all the clips playing that I want to. But yeah, just experiment with it and try and have some fun. I'm going to switch this one back to blue for now and just delete these 2 tracks. Cool. So now we're back to our original sequence. Now I do have a video about the effects section coming up, and we will be diving into this a lot deeper, but it's just also worth noting that while we have something playing, we can hold down one of these tracks. Let's say we want to do the drums, for example, and we've got all of these effects up here. Maybe I want to throw in some reverb. So if I twist this while holding that track, now we've got some pretty heavy reverb on the drums. But yeah, that way we get total control over the effects per row as we're going through. Maybe we wanted to change the cutoff for this one. Maybe you wanted to put a different filter on this one. Yeah, really useful. And also, if we want to affect the entire thing that's playing, of course, we just activate effect entire. now we can, apply reverb to everything. So you get a lot of control over manipulating and playing around with clips in different ways just from the song view, which is really useful because having to sort of go in and out of clips while you're performing all of your different tracks can be a little bit confusing. So being able to do things on this sort of surface level is really helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and turn all of these off and just create a new drum track. So let's say that I wanted to clone this clip, but I just want to hear the hi-hats. I want my hi-hats to be on a separate clip so that I can easily toggle them on and off as I play through. The only problem with that is because they're sharing the same preset, it's not going to let me play them at the same time. I could even make this section blue. It's still not going to let me. This is what I was talking about before with trying to clone clips. There is a way around this. So obviously we could just go in here and swap out the hi-hat sound for a different track, and now we can play them together. But let's say I wanted that hi-hat or that specific synth sound or whatever. So the way we go about doing that, just jump into this first clip here. So this is just the kick and the snare. So what we want to do is press load kit. And, you would twist this knob. You could use the keyboard. You would twist this knob to sort of find the patch that you're looking for. I want patch 0. So what I'm going to do is hold load until the word clone comes up. Now we can press load again. And now it's going to say 0A. So a different version of this patch has been made. If we jump back into song mode, we can now toggle this on. And we have the same patch, it's just made a different instance of it. Now, I used to sort of be quite annoyed when I first got the Deluge that this was a feature and it was really hard to sort of get around, or at least get my head around, because I couldn't really understand why you just wouldn't want to be able to copy things and turn them on and off willy-nilly. But it's actually really useful that the Deluge does this automatically for you. Originally I thought, well, what if I wanted the lower bass tones of a piano playing, and then I wanted a copy of that track with higher tones that I could quickly bring in and out? Really, the way that you would do that is just have a copy of the same track, and those clips are just unmuted. Sort of the higher range notes are unmuted. So there's not really any other reason to do it other than what I just did here for trying to get the same sounds out of a specific pack. But hey, you might find that you need it done for another reason. I just thought that it was worth mentioning how to go about doing it. But that's probably the first time I've ever actually had to do it. I'd never find myself using that for anything. So yeah, hopefully it helps you in some way. So I'm just going to delete those for now. Now we're back to our original song. So let's talk about how to save your song. So obviously you just hit the save button and it's going to come up with a keyboard. The green is your enter button. These are your shift buttons, space bar, backspace, so on and so forth. Let's call this something really easy to call back. Let's call it Bob. Cool. So we typed Bob, and now we can just press enter, and it is saved. If we go to load, we can see that Bob is in our selection. I've got a couple of other tracks hovering around it. So that's really awesome. Let's talk about something that's even more awesome. So let's say I make some changes to this track. Have a quick listen. All right, let's say I want to just maybe throw on a ton of saturation to the kick. Awful. And maybe on this one, I want some more delay. I just want to make the whole thing sound completely different. All right, so let's pretend for a second that I actually like what I did there, but I don't want to save over my previous version of Bob because we already worked so hard, and let's say this is the wrong route to go down. So basically what I'm trying to get at here is if I hit save again, we can see that it's got B2. So basically, if we use this knob at the top here, we can scroll through this display. I should have mentioned that right at the start. Whenever anything comes up on your screen, you can use this to scroll back and forth. So if it's hovering through too fast or you're just catching the tail end, just use this. So we can see Bob, but it's got an underscore and the number 2. Basically, what that's allowing us to do is to save a second version. We can scroll left and save over Bob, which was our original one, but I don't want to do that. So let's just go back because I've gotten out of that feature now. So we'll press save, Bob 2, press enter. And now if we go load, we've got Bob 2 and the first Bob. So this is like a really good way of intermittent saving, allowing you to sort of make different decisions on your track without overlapping the previous version. However, it's got a couple of other uses as well. Let's say you're performing a live set and you want to quickly load between songs. So for example, let's save a different copy of this. We're going to call this one set. We got this version now. Let's change all of the sounds. This might sound awful. Right. And maybe we'll drop the tempo to something really different too. So let's hit save and press enter. Now when we go to load, we have our first set file. And we've also got our second set file. Pretend that these are two completely different songs. Basically what I'm trying to get at is we could be playing away our first set. Everyone's jamming out, we're all having a really good time, but I want to cut to the next song in my set. So if I just press load and turn across and then press load, once this song finishes, the new one will start playing. You can have multiple versions of these, so it's like a really useful way to quickly put together a live set but have everything self-contained, so when you go to load something you're not sifting through tons and tons of files to get to what you're after. Just to show off one other feature relating to that, at the moment set and set 2 have different tempos. So if we listen to this one, it's quite fast. If we wanted set 2 to come in but come in with the same tempo as set 1. Let's have this playing and go load, set 2, and if we hold down the tempo knob and then press load, that's now using the same tempo as the previous track we had going. Man, that sounds awful. Sorry about that. Just to save us listening to that guy again, I'm just going to scroll back to our original version, Bob. Where are you, Bob? Hey, Bob. That's a bit better. So I don't know how many of my viewers use Ableton, but Ableton has a really handy feature called Collect All and Save. And basically what it does is it not only saves your file, but it creates a folder and saves all of these samples and presets that you have going in that file. And that way you can easily put them on a hard drive or give them to another Ableton user, and everything's going to be there without any files missing. The Deluge also has this feature, so let's go over how to do that. So basically, when we go save, before we enter in anything, if we just press and hold save, we'll see that collect is written there. So we'll press save again, and now it's created a new folder with all of these sounds and samples stored in, so that we can easily pop out this SD card and we could give it to another Deluge user. And yeah, it's pretty handy. Now, just going back to our set files that we made, I really hated the sound of them, and I just want to use this time to show you how to delete a song. So we can just press Shift and delete, and it'll ask you to confirm, and you just tap that button again. I'm going to delete this second one as well. Anyways, I think that's all that there really is to cover in song mode. Of course, there's some audio track features that are specific to song view as well. We're not getting into audio stuff or sampling today. I'm hoping that the next video is going to be covering the effects section. And then we might move into using samples and using audio clips before jumping into the arranger view and then finally going over the synth engine and how to make your own sounds. And then I'm pretty sure that will cover just about everything. What I'm hoping to do after that is really dive into a few different workflow sort of features and ways that I like to use the Deluge and ways that you can think about doing things differently, sort of, like resampling audio and getting really funky with it. There's a lot of stuff that this thing can do, and it takes so much time to explain it. But I'm hoping that this is all going really well so far. Anyways, that's all I have time for today, folks. Hit the like if you like, and if you don't, tell me why. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.